Part 2 of session 29, and let's finish up this session with crystal use. Let's begin. This video is going to be shorter than the rest because it's only a couple of questions that we had left from session 29. If you remember from the previous sessions, we were talking about cosmology and specifically intelligent infinity, intelligent energy, the logos, the sub-logos, and all that information that was very heavy. And so we finished that last video, and that's why I wanted to have this standalone video talking about the rest of the questions, which went towards the direction of crystal work. And one last question that we're going to get into it, that it's not really about crystal, but let's finish up session 29 and we're going to be done with this, so we can move into session 30, which is going to be a little bit of that mixture that we had in previous sessions, and it wasn't as heavy. So let's go straight into the question that we left off. It was question 23, where Don says, okay, now, as the creation is formed, as the atoms form from rotations of the vibration, which is light, they coalesce in a certain manner sometimes. They find distances, interatomic distances, from each other at precise distance and produce a lattice structure which we call crystalline. I'm guessing that because of the formation from intelligent energy of the precise crystalline structure, that it is possible by some technique to tap intelligent energy and bring it into the physical illusion by working through the crystalline structure. Is this correct? Ra says this is correct only insofar as the crystalline physical structure is charged by a correspondingly crystallized or regularized or balanced mind-body-spirit complex. So Don was now asking about the work that can be done with crystals for healing, and we've covered this in previous sessions. And Don was mostly interested in, as you can see in the next questions, how to use crystals and how to know if you were able to use crystals for healing, which is going to come to a surprise statement by Ra, which probably not surprising as we read it, but maybe a wall of bricks for Don, and it's going to make sense. But in this case, Don is asking if this first, how the crystals are formed, and then because of that formation and knowing everything that we know, if that's how we can tap intelligent energy or intelligent infinity to move intelligent energy for healing. And Ra says this is correct in the sense of the physical crystal and how it works, but they emphasize the need to have, and they say this all the time, the crystal itself doesn't work. You have to have somebody who is balanced in the way that they're going to describe here for the actual use of the crystal. So that's what they're saying when they say a regularized or balanced mind-body-spirit complex is just a person that is balanced and regularized and crystallized as well, which is all terms to describe somebody who is basically pretty much aligned with themselves and have a seeking towards healing. That's another very important part, because without that, then there is no healing happening. You have to have the intention of healing, plus being pretty much aligned with yourself, which is something that's going to make more sense in the next questions, to be able to channel this energy and to help another person. So next question that Don asks, and because we've covered this in previous material, he says, I don't wish to get off on subjects of no importance or subjects that don't lead us to better understanding of our mechanisms of growth, which lead us to things that are not transient. But it's difficult sometimes to see precisely what direction to go in. I would like to investigate a little bit more this idea of crystals and how they are used. So Don says, I am assuming then from what you said that in order to use the crystal to tap intelligent energy, it is necessary to have a partially undistorted mind-body-spirit complex. Is this satisfactory, or do you need, is this correct? And again, this Don is recognizing that the question itself it's going into territory that we have covered already when we talked about crystal healing and healing itself. So he's he says, like, we don't this also, I mean, I want to point this out because it's important to keep in mind that the raw contact was able to be sustained because of the nature of the questions that they asked. So you couldn't be asking just any type of question, because this would alter the direction that the people of Ra had, and the interference or mixed contact could happen because of the intentions of the questions. So every time you read Don saying something like, I'm sorry to go off track, or I hope I'm not going in the wrong direction here, or anything like that, is actually what kept the contact going all along, because of these questions. And that's what Don is recognizing here. And because of that, Ra always told him that you're pretty conscious about the questions that you're asking, so the contact is fine and all that stuff. So it doesn't have to do much with the session itself or the video, but I wanted to point that out because it shows the nature of how this was done. And Ra even said at some point, I forgot which session, the 40s or the 60s, somewhere around there, that they could not find, and they would probably not find, any other group of people that they could do a contact like this in the near future. Or I don't know how impossible it was, or not probable, because of the great harmony that they had. So again, I just wanted to put that parentheses there. And then going back to the question, then Don wants to know if this is if this is what they need. They need somebody who is partially undistorted, doesn't have to be a perfect being, but has that ability to tap intelligent energy. And if that's correct, then Ra's going to say that this is specifically correct. We know that already. And the next question is Don saying, there must be a point at which the removal of distortion reaches a minimum for use of the crystal in tapping intelligent energy. Is this correct? Ra says this is correct only if it is understood, shall we say, that each mind-body-spirit complex has a unique such point. Don further inquires, can you tell me why each mind-body-spirit complex has this unique point of distortion reading? Ra says each mind-body-spirit complex is a unique portion of the one creator. Don says, then you are saying that there is no single level of, shall we say, purity required to tap intelligent energy through crystals, but there can be a wide variety in the amount of distortion that an entity may have, but each entity has to reach his particular point of, what I might call, energizing the ability. Is this right? Ra says, this is incorrect. The necessity is for the mind-body-spirit complex to be of a certain balance. This balance thus enabling it to reach a set level of lack of distortion. The critical difficulties are unique for each mind-body-spirit complex due to the experiential distillations, which in total are the, shall we say, violet ray beingness of each such entity. So I went through several questions because what Don was trying to find out is if it was if there was a specific amount of purity that was needed by the person itself. And there's kind of like that linear thinking, I would say, and it's just no offense at all, but we fall into that. In fact, there is no offense in this. There's just a recognition that we as humans, especially if we're very intellectual, we tend to go into linear thinking because we want to know if there is a specific way to reach a process. And in here we tend to think that there must be somebody who is so pure that that's what we need. We all need to reach that level of purity or that level of perfection or whatever it may be the case. And we have different factors and elements playing here, which is what Ra is saying here at the end, that the mind-body-spirit complex needs a certain balance, and that balance is dependent on the entity. The entity may have all kinds of different distortions compared to somebody else, and those distortions need to be alleviated, at least, so they could be a good channel for the energy that's going to be funneled or channeled in. So that's there's no specific way or one specific point that needs to be reached, but rather a balance of the entity itself. So anybody could be a healer, to be honest. It's just that not everybody has that seeking, plus everybody has a different point of balancing that they need to do in order to allow this energy to be channeled through them, because they are channels, and the crystal itself is just going to be it's almost like the magnifying glass, that just does that kind of work, and it kind of it's charged, and that energy is used or transferred to the person, so it can allow for a catalyst to happen in the other individual, the person being healed, so they could use it whichever way it can be done. So that's why in the pyramids they also used a priest or a healer that was the one who was pretty much crystallized themselves. Crystallized meaning that they're aligned, that they have as less distortion as possible. It's not possible to have no distortions, because just being here you must have some sort of distortion to be here in the creation itself. So that's what they're saying. Let me go back to the rest of the question, or the answer, where Ra says, this balances what is necessary for work to be done in seeking the gateway to intelligent infinity through the use of crystals or through any other use. No two mind-body-spirit crystallized natures are the same. The distortion requirements, vibrational speaking, are set. So now, with everything that I said, I guess this makes a lot more sense, in terms of how the person needs to be. It just has to be somebody who is just crystallized in and of itself, in its own way. So no two people are the same, and that's just how it works. So there is no level that we all need to reach. It's just no ordain, from from our metaphysical self, let's put it that way, to our physical self. So that's basically it. Not too heavy. And Don says, I see. Then if you are able to read the violet ray of an entity to see that ray, is it possible then to immediately determine whether the entity could use crystals to tap intelligent energy? Ra says it is possible for one of 5th density or above to do this, so not us, or not somebody from 4th density. Don says, is it possible for you to tell me how a crystal is used by an entity who has satisfactorily achieved necessary violet ray qualification? I will say how it is possible for the entity to use the crystal, or how he should use the crystal. Ra says, the gateway to intelligent infinity is born of, shall we say, a sympathetic vibration in balanced state, a companion with the will to serve, the will to seek. So, see, Don, and this becomes a lot more clear with the next question that Don has. But Don was asking, like, how do you use the crystal? How is it, that I want to know, how do I use it? How do I place it, and what do I do with it, and everything else? And Ra's going into more of, like, the metaphysical side of it, or that part of the self itself. And they say the gateway to intelligent infinity. So opening the gateway to intelligent infinity from your 6th chakra, or the indigo ray, is born of the sympathetic vibration in balanced state, a companion, the will to serve, or the will to seek. So the sympathetic vibration is that that state that you are when you are aligned, when you're in a balanced state. and it has to be or go along with the will to serve or the will to seek. So serve and seek and serve are kind of synonymous here, because if you're seeking being, you know, that way to know the self, that's a way to serve. And the more you know yourself, the more you serve, say, the creation, the more you serve yourself, actually, not to evoke the idea of serving something external. Anything external is the self, and it's important to always keep in mind that there is no other self but the one self, and we are that self. So that's unity. Unity expressed in multiplicity here, in the illusion of creation, so we can have an experience, and that experience can only happen if we're divided. So if we perceive the self as separate, then we're not seeing reality as it is. If we see, or the more we see the creation and other selves, especially other selves, as us, and we identify with themselves, when who they are, then the more we serve this creation by seeing everything as unity. So, okay, I think I got off track there, but just wanted to mention that. And let's see, the next question. Yeah, Don is going to go into, you know, more, like he says, but can you tell me precisely what the entity would do with the crystal to use it for the purpose of seeking the intelligent infinity? And Ra says, the use of the crystal in physical manifestation is that use wherein the entity of crystalline nature charges the regularized physical crystal with the seeking, thus enabling it to vibrate harmonically and also become the catalyst or gateway whereby intelligent infinity may thus become intelligent energy. This crystal serving as an analog of the violet ray of mind, body, spirit in relatively undistorted form. So, again, the use of the physical crystal is that where the entity that is using the healer itself charges it in a way that with the seeking, and seeking in this case is the will to serve and to serve the other entity, to help the other entity in a selfless way. The healer itself doesn't have an identity at this point. The healer is not somebody trying to help another self. It's helping itself. It's seeing it that way. So that's how it becomes a pure channel for the undifferentiated intelligent energy that is being funneled for the person being healed. So that's a very important part of somebody who is of crystalline nature, that charges the physical crystal with that energy. So there is no distortion, or very little distortion, from intelligent infinity through the gateway of the healer to the crystal, so it can be charged and used for healing in that way. They continue and they say, thus enabling it to vibrate harmonically. Of course, it vibrates in harmony if the person charging it doesn't distort it. So there is pure harmony there. And it also become the catalyst or gateway whereby intelligent infinity may thus become intelligent energy. The person, the healer, becomes, and the crystal itself, the healer and the crystal become, the way I understand it, they become the catalyst or the enabling principle for the possibility of healing in this case. They provide that catalyst, whereby intelligent infinity may thus become intelligent energy, this crystal serving as an analog of the violet ray of mind, body, spirit in relatively undistorted form. The crystal becomes an analog of the violet ray of mind, body, spirit. In this case, I'm assuming they are talking about the healer. They could also be talking about the person being healed, but I think it's more the healer, and that's just how it's done. Like I said, the healer is it's almost like the crystal is an extension of the healer, and because the crystal is completely crystallized and has basically no distortions, whereas the healer may have some distortion, so that energy may be used in that way. Of course, this is not the only way of healing, it's just one of the ways, and this comes into comes to memory, the work that shamans, pure shamans, I would say. I like to use the word shaman for the person that has been trained for a long time, probably his whole life, or at least has become one with nature that way, that it can understand the plant medicine that they're using, or even the plants themselves. They talk or receive information from the plants. If you have seen anybody from say South America in their tribes, when they say, the plants told me that this was good for arthritis, or the plant told me this was good for infection, or they're not doing any scientific work in a lab or anything. They're just talking directly to the plants, and the plants are in some way, by dreams, by meditation, contemplation, or just through the crystallized being, they're informing the individual that the plant may be of use for such and such a way. So that's the same thing. It's not them. They didn't say, well, I just realized that this plant has... There's no ego there. They just know. The plant told me, so the plant is good for this. I have nothing to do with it. So these are... And of course, we're talking about the same thing. It's healing. So, in the same way, crystals can be used this way. And it all has to do with the healer. This reminds me of previous sessions when we talk about healing. If you haven't watched, I made a video recently talking about healing, questions that I didn't cover before, so you can probably see it here or here. I think it's here, where it's gonna pop up and you can see it, and you can go and watch that part of healing. So they say that everybody is a different type of healer. So it depends on the individual too. And that individual has its own way of healing other people. It could be, in many ways, just like crystal or plants or verbal, dialogue with people, which is essentially what Buddhism is. Buddhism is healing with, a dialogue. There's no specific teaching that happens. It's just the person learning through the catalyst that is provided by, say, the master, the teacher, healing the other person. Remember, healing is just removing distortions and balancing and organizing, in essence, your energy centers, your chakras. So whatever helps in that way, it's some sort of healing. So anyhow, so this explains, in essence, what the person and the crystal does to heal. And let's go to the next question. So we can go on to the end, where Don says, is it possible at all for you to instruct us in specific uses of crystal? And Ra kind of finishes this off by saying, this makes me laugh. I'm sorry. It is possible. There are, we consider, things which are not efficacious to tell you due to the possible infringement upon your free will. Entities of the Confederation have erred in the past. The uses of the crystal, as you know, include the uses for healing, for power, and even for the development of life forms. We feel that it is unwise to offer instruction at this time, as your peoples have shown a tendency to use peaceful sources of power for disharmonious reasons. Can you blame them? Yes, they are right. Not yes, you can blame them. But hey, yeah, you can blame them too, because they gave us the same information. It's your fault. We are the victims. Shame on you, Ra, and the Confederation, to give us all that work, or all that information back in the Atlantean days. So, okay, so again, Don wanted to know if it was possible for them to show them, ways into how to heal with crystals and so on. This was a little bit more bold than the previous questions that Don had, saying, can you teach us how to heal and all this stuff? Can we become healers? And Ra said, yes, we can. Yes, we could. But now Don is saying, like, hey, can you teach us how to, use crystals? And this has nothing to do with Don, of course. This has nothing to do with Carla and Jim or anybody in LNL research at the time. It had to do with the information that they were given. and they could say like, oh, you guys are great, I'm sure you would use this information for healing. But they say, your peoples have shown a tendency to use peaceful sources of power for disharmonious reasons. So I think that's just funny, because it just shows that they're very hesitant to show us anything that can be used for potential destruction, especially in these times. So I just get a kick out of this. You gotta laugh. Laughter is the ultimate realization. I think it's funny. So I'll probably keep laughing until the end of the video. But yeah, so they said basically, we could teach you, but it's not possible. We don't want to make the same mistakes that we did in the past. We did this. How many times I did it, in Atlantis and Egypt, and even now, with free energy, as they did it, which wasn't catastrophic, I have to say. When they gave us free energy, at least something happened that was taken away from not from the people. And this is, again, using Don and the LNL research people as, really positive beings. As an example, there's a lot of positive beings here that would use intelligent energy or infinite energy, as Tesla gave us, for good purposes. But it's those pesky ones that still roam our planet that have to be, kept in watch. We have to, not by us, because we don't know any better. But, that information, it's, I guess, in a good way, that was taken away, from these people. Somehow, I don't even know. This is a mystery now. But also, we, like, say, Einstein, or even before, all this, Einstein wasn't, Einstein was given something different. But it was around the time of Einstein where, the information about nuclear bombs were giving, and this was the Confederation. Again, they were trying to give, some sort of technology to be used, and of course we use it to blow ourselves up. So, that's why they're very hesitant to give, this type of information. Even if it's for benevolent use, there are some who would read the material and say, "Oh, thank you, Ra." So yeah, we are still pretty unconscious about the use and the purpose of this whole creation. I mean, it's hard enough to get people to believe that there is interdimensional existence. It's hard enough right now because of science too, in its own way, or even religion to a great degree, to make people believe that there is, an internal God, that there's this, the basic principles of the spirit. A lot of people believe in spirit, but they don't believe in the possibility of spirit, enduring and reincarnating and just being part of the whole. They feel like they are, sheep by a shepherd who is God, who keeps all the sheep in place. And, I judge you and I move you to another den where there's fire and, there's a black sheep there, poking you with a trident and so on. I don't know. So we have a lot to grow and a lot to learn. But enough philosophizing here and going, on a tangent. We have one more question to cover. But I think that was important to mention in general, just to finalize this. This is the end, of course, of Don asking, about crystal healing. So let's go to the last question, where Don says, I guess what we'd better get to then, now that we have traced the path of creation, at least down to the crystalline structure, we better concentrate on the evolution of thought and its seeking path to intelligent infinity. Gotta love Don. See, he got the message and said, all right, let's get back to business. And he says, we have created in the major galaxy of the Logos a very large number of planets. As these planets develop, is it possible for you to give me an example of various planetary developments in what I would call a metaphysical sense, having to do with the development of consciousness and its polarities throughout the galaxy? In other words, I believe that some of these planets develop quite rapidly into higher density planets, and some take longer times. Can you give me some idea of that development? Ra says, the particular logos of your major galaxy has used a large portion of its coalesced material to reflect the beingness of the Creator. In this way, there is much of your galactic system which does not have the progression of which you speak, but dwells spiritually as a portion of the logos. Of those entities upon which consciousness dwells, there is, as you surmise, a variety of time-space periods during which the higher densities of experience are attained by consciousness. So I don't think the question that Don was specifically answered by Ra here, even though they gave like a little, another insight on the same topic, because I think Don wanted to ask was about the planets and their evolution through their metaphysical evolution, say. And Ra, I guess, picked up that part of the evolution, and they said, well, let's go to the basics of the state of matter in the galaxy itself. And they said, this logos has used most of it to reflect the Creator, so much of it is in the spiritual realm, basically. And the rest of the entities who are conscious then are going through the process of evolution through space-time and time-space. So those who have acquired that spiritual portion are going through the process of consciousness evolution through the densities, as we have explained. So they're given that idea that there's a vast portion of the galaxy that remains in the spiritual realm, and that the rest are just going through the motions, just like we are. So this question, I think, is going to get into because I didn't put here that Ra says this is the last question, of course, and they said, does this satisfy your query or something to that effect? They say, yeah. So does this answer the question, something like that? And Don says, I'll have to think about it and ask tomorrow more or elaborate or whatever. But that was it, and there's also, there's another question that I didn't put here that had to do with Carla, and just personal stuff about her, healing and using a machine and all that stuff. I think that's what it was here. So, yeah, no, there was something else about healing that they didn't talk about, but I don't want to include it here, which had to do with Carla itself. So, in the next session, they're going to talk about this specifically, and it's going to make more sense there when Don asks the question more specific. So that's all we got here. Conclusions. We talked about healing, and healing is something that we seek all the time, because that's just the nature of what we're trying to do. Whether we do it here in the physical space-time, or we attempt to do it or program for it in time-space, that's the purpose of evolution, if you think about it. The more aligned you are with yourself, then the more you can see in consciousness. The more expanded your consciousness is, thus you are able to be part of the creation in higher densities. So healing is, and it's funny because Ra, whenever they say healing, they say healing as you call this or something like that. They don't see healing as we see it. They see healing more as the process of evolution, of us aligning ourselves with who we are. Of course, there are different distortions that occur in the densities, but that's just the nature of it. And that's why healing here is not the same as healing in 4th density or in 5th density, but it's the same process. So keeping that in mind, we know that whatever we do here reflects in our spiritual or metaphysical bodies, or whichever way you want to see our mind-body-spirit complex outside of space-time. That's really important, because when we start seeing ourselves as something that is beyond this physical body, then we know that the work that we're doing here is basically mental. The body has nothing to do with it. The body is just a vehicle, and the mind is, in essence, everything. So it's our mind that we need to process, and we need to understand better knowing the self. And this is the process of, again, just knowing who you are and expressing who you are, accepting who you are. There is no long, healing that I have to go through because, I need to find who I am and I need to evolve in some way. In a way, and this is funny, but evolution here means accepting who you are. And it's that hard. I think that's why we try to externalize things to make us believe, because it seems easier to try to achieve something as opposed to accept who we are. Of course, conditioning has a lot to do. When I mean conditioning, I'm talking about the cultural conditioning that we have, society and so on. But when you really feel yourself as who you are, it's really hard to accept, who you want to be, the things that you like doing, because there are different things that you ought to be doing. So I talk a lot about this, in my social media, and whenever I get the chance to kind of go on a parallel here with the raw material, because I think this is the most important part of knowing the self, is just accepting who you are and just be. There's no judgment, especially coming from you. So healing comes there, and this is exactly how you become crystallized. This is how you become aligned with yourself. You don't judge yourself anymore, and by not judging yourself, there is the automatic response of not being able to judge others. It's just not possible, because you judge others based on how you judge yourselves. So this is important to keep in mind, and my belief, this is again just my philosophy of life, that if we seek healing, that's the best way we can provide it to ourselves. It's just seeking the self, accepting who we are, because we are everything. Also, seeking the self may lead to think that we need to find something, we need to achieve something. Everything's it's inside already. We have been programmed for this. We ourselves program our existence here, and we continue to feed ourselves through intuition and the mind complex to know who we are. That's why experience and catalyst is available to us. We are providing it to ourselves. So again, just wanted to emphasize that part, since we talk about healing. That's the best conclusion I can get out of this part of the material. Session 30 is going to be more about, like I said, a mixture of different questions here and there, like we were used to. We're done with the heavy part of cosmology or cosmogenesis, and this is going to be a lot smoother, for at least some sessions, until we get some heavy stuff that is more specific. So thank you for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed, like, because it helps spread this Law of One material that I love so much. And if you're watching this far, then you definitely like it too. So that's the best way you can contribute so far, to spread it. Share it also if you want, with people that may resonate with it. That is one of the best ways to actually expand the reach of this material, and of my humble service here to interpret it in my own way. Again, it's probably a good time to say that this is not the ultimate way to interpret it. It's just me very excited to talk about this stuff just because I love it, and that's it. That's the only reason I do it. Not to teach, not to give some ultimate truth that's coming out of this, but just how I feel it, how I perceive it, and this is just how I deliver it. So again, if I didn't say it, thank you again, and I'll see you in session 30.